Have you ever used a ladder, scaffold, worked inside a ceiling, climbed on top of a roof, or operated a mobile elevated working platform? These are all areas defined as elevated positions. One of those elevated positions is the use of a ladder. Now, outside of the construction regulations, we look at every single company in South Africa having to adhere to General Safety Regulations Section 6, and this discusses work in elevated positions, the start of which says that no employer shall require or permit any person to work in any elevated position, and no person shall work in an elevated position unless such work is performed safely, either from a ladder or scaffolding, or from a position where such person has been made as safe as if they were working from a scaffolding. Now we get to that part again, where we need to read and discuss the legislation pertaining to the General Safety Regulation 6, work in elevated positions. So the first area we want to discuss in the work in elevated positions is the use of ladders to do so. And for this we have to go to the General Safety Regulation Section 13A. And it states, an employer shall ensure that every ladder is constructed of sound material and is suitable for the purpose for which it is used, and is fitted with non-skid devices at the bottom ends and hooks or similar devices at the upper ends of the stiles, which shall ensure the stability of the ladder during normal use, or is so lashed, held, or secured whilst being used as to ensure the stability of the ladder under all conditions and at all times. No employer shall use a ladder or permit it to be used if it has rungs fastened to the stiles only by means of nails, screws, spikes, or in like manner, or has rungs which have not been properly let into the stiles, provided that in the case of welded ladders, or ladders of which the rungs are bolted or riveted to the stiles, the rungs need not be let into the stiles, or has damaged stiles, or damaged or missing rungs. No employer may permit that a ladder which is required to be leaned against an object for support be used which is longer than 9 meters, and except with the approval of an inspector, the reach of a ladder be extended by fastening together 2 or more ladders, provided that the provisions of this sub-regulation shall not apply to extension of freestanding ladders. In the case of wooden ladders, the employer shall ensure that the ladders are constructed of straight-grained wood, free from defects, and with a grain running in the length of the stiles and rungs. And the ladders are not painted or covered in any manner, unless it has been established that there are no cracks or other inherent weaknesses, provided that the ladders may be treated with oil or covered with clear varnish or wood preservative. When work is done from a ladder, the employer shall take special precautionary measures to prevent articles from falling off, and provide suitable sheaths or receptacles in which hand tools shall be kept when not being used. An employer shall ensure that a fixed ladder, which exceeds 5 meters in length and is attached to a vertical structure with an inclination to the horizontal level of 75 or more, has its rungs at least 150 millimeters away from the structure to which the ladder is attached, and is provided with a cage which extends from a point not exceeding 2.5 meters from the lower level to a height of at least 900 millimeters above the top level served by the ladder, and shall afford firm support along its whole length for the back of the person climbing the ladder, and for which the purpose no part of the cage shall be more than 700 millimeters away from the level of the rungs, provided that the foregoing provisions of paragraph B shall not apply if platforms, which are spaced not more than 8 meters apart and suitable for persons to rest on, are provided. The law is very clear. And this is the general safety regulations, meaning that in general, every company working with ladders has this regulation as the minimum legal compliance. But if it is a ladder that is used in conjunction with scaffolding, then it should also conform to the SANS 10085 section 10.7. If a fall risk exists within a construction regulation, then construction regulation 10, fall protection, must also be adhered to. If you are using this ladder to access another platform, please ensure you set up the ladder correctly. Let's say the platform is 4 meters up. You would want to take that ladder 1 meter away from the structure, and this would give you the correct ratio of setting up your ladder. When climbing up or down the ladder, you must ensure that you have 3 points of contact. And remember, ladders are designed for only one person at a time. Ladders are designed as one-man working devices with sufficient strength to support one person as well as their tools. In the picture on the left-hand side, you can see the worker is trying to access the roof in this situation. Please remember that safe access means that the ladder must protrude at least 900 millimeters past the landing. This is to ensure that the employee has 3 points of contact while getting off the ladder or getting on the ladder, and it must be safely secured to prevent the movement of that ladder. When accessing a ceiling, the same applies. The distance to top support, your 900 millimeters of extension past your platform, as well as your 1:4 ratio. Now when climbing into a ceiling, caution must be taken that you do not have a ladder that is too short. The ladder must extend through the opening of the ceiling entrance and allow enough extra overhang to safely step from the ladder to the safe landing inside the ceiling. We cannot stress this enough. If your ladder is too short and you are reaching to get on or off of the ladder, you are at danger of falling and potentially getting seriously injured or even dying. The ladder should extend past the platform at least 900 millimeters to allow for a person to hold the ladder with both hands while stepping on or off the ladder. If you are using a ladder in the manner shown in the picture on the left-hand side of this slide, then you could potentially cause the ladder to shift under the weight and increase the potential for a fall. Ladders must have stable footing. There should be top support. The ladder must be set up correctly, and no tools and equipment should be able to fall off of our ladder. Have you checked? Is the right ladder for the work you are doing being selected? Has it been inspected, and is it safe to use? What should be on your ladder inspection? All the rungs, cleats, and steps should be in good condition. Ask yourself, are the side rails intact without any cracks, bends, or breaks? Do the rungs, cleats, or steps fit snugly into the side rails? Is the ladder free from corrosion? Are the side rails and steps free from oil or grease? Are the ladder's hardware and fittings secure and undamaged? Do movable parts operate freely without binding or excessive play? Are the ropes on extension ladders intact without fraying or excessive wear? Are damaged ladders removed from service and marked "Do not use"? Remember, ladders should have a serial number and all ladders must be placed onto a register. Let us recap. All ladders must be set up and used correctly. Check the ladder and ensure it is safe to use. Check the base or foot support. Check the angle of setup, your 1:4 ratio or 75 degrees. Check that it extends past the platform at least 900 millimeters. Check the area around the ladder for other hazards such as doors or spacing. Work as a team help to set up the ladder safely. Using a safe ladder in a safe manner could save you from a fatal fall. Here are some basic safety rules about ladders that you can use within your organization. Always avoid bringing the ladder into contact with electricity. Place the ladder so that its feet are a quarter of its length to the top support from the object it is resting against. This is your 1:4 ratio or 75-degree angle. Unless the ladder is securely tied at the top, it should always be held in position by another person whilst in use. Wherever possible, it should extend 900 millimeters above its support. Ladders should be inspected at frequent intervals. Defective ladders should be repaired or replaced. As paint conceals defects, use varnish or 2 coats of oil instead to preserve wooden ladders. Keep ladders clean because dirt hides defects, while grease or oil can cause people to slip. Do not leave ladders lying on wet ground or exposed to weather. Ladders lying on floors may cause workers to trip and fall, or may be run over by vehicles and be damaged. Do not use ladders horizontally as walkways or scaffolding. Tools and equipment should be hauled up by ropes. Never leave a ladder where it may fall. Never place a ladder in front of a doorway before taking adequate precautions. Ladders should be equipped with safety feet. Store ladders in a cool place, either lying on their sides or hanging in a horizontal position from several wall brackets. Avoid warping wherever possible. Use both hands when climbing up or down a ladder. The next area of working in elevated positions is scaffolding. For this, we want to go to the General Safety Regulation, Section 13D, under the heading Scaffolding. An employer shall ensure that scaffold standards are properly propped against displacement and are secured vertically on firm foundations, provided that putlock scaffolds shall incline slightly toward the structure. Steel scaffolding standards with heavy, medium, light, or very light platform loadings which shall not exceed 320, 240, 160, and 80 kilograms per square meter respectively are placed not more than 1.8 meters, 2 meters, 2.5 meters, and 3 meters apart respectively, and wooden scaffold standards are spaced not more than 3 meters apart. Ladders are spaced vertically not more than 2.1 meters apart. Putlock or transoms which do not support a platform are spaced at the same distances as the distances prescribed in paragraph B in respect of scaffold standards, which supports a platform, are spaced not more than 1.25 meters apart if the platform is constructed of solid timber boards, and every part of a wooden scaffold frame has a diameter of at least 75 millimeters or a section of similar length. No employer shall use a scaffold or permit it to be used unless it is securely and effectively braced to ensure stability in all directions, is used at suitable vertical and horizontal distances to the structure to which work is being done, unless it is designed to be completely freestanding, is so constructed that it has a throughout factor of safety of at least 2, and is inspected at least once a week and every time after bad weather by a person who has adequate experience in the erection and maintenance of scaffolds, and all findings are recorded in a register or report book. No employer shall require or permit that a scaffolding with a supported wooden framework exceeds a height of 10 meters, and a scaffold is erected, altered, or dismantled by or under the supervision of a person other than a person who has had the necessary training and experience of such work and who has been appointed by the employer in writing for this purpose. For scaffolding platforms, we now look at General Safety Regulation Section 13E. An employer shall ensure that every plank of a solid wooden scaffold platform is at least 275 millimeters wide and 38 millimeters thick. Every plank which forms part of a scaffold platform is supported at distances not exceeding 1.25 meters, and its ends are projected not less than 70 millimeters and not more than 200 millimeters beyond the last prop. Every plank of a scaffold platform is firmly secured to prevent its displacement, and every platform is so constructed as to prevent materials and tools from falling through. An employer shall ensure that every scaffold platform with heavy, medium, light, or very light platform loadings as referred to in Regulation 13D 1BI is not less than 1,125 millimeters and not more than 1,380 millimeters, not less than 1,125 millimeters and not more than 1,150 millimeters, not less than 900 millimeters and not more than 1,150 millimeters, and not less than 675 millimeters, and not more than 1,150 millimeters respectively wide, provided that where a platform is used only as a gangway, a platform width of 450 millimeters shall be sufficient. Which is more than 2 meters above the ground is on all sides except the side facing the structure, provided with substantial guardrails of at least 900 millimeters and not exceeding 1,000 millimeters in height, and toe boards which are at least 150 millimeters high from the level of the scaffold platform and so affixed that no open space exists between the toe boards and the scaffold platform, provided that if the toe boards are constructed of timber, they shall be at least 25 millimeters thick. It is not more than 75 millimeters from the structure, provided that where workmen must sit to work, this distance may be increased to not more than 300 millimeters, and is kept free of waste, projecting nails, or any other obstructions, and is kept in a non-slip state. No employer shall require or permit that a working platform which is higher than 600 millimeters be supported on a scaffold platform, and shall provide an additional guardrail of at least 900 millimeters and not exceeding 1,000 millimeters in height above every such working platform. An employer shall ensure that convenient and safe access is provided to every scaffold platform, and where the access is a ladder, the ladder shall project at least 900 millimeters beyond the top of the platform. When working on suspended scaffolds, we need to look at the General Safety Regulations Section 13F under the heading Suspended Scaffolds. An employer shall ensure that the outriggers of each suspended scaffold are constructed of steel or any other material of similar strength and have a factor of safety of at least 4 with respect to the load it is to carry, have an overhang of not more than 1.8 meters beyond the edge of the structure, and are of such length that the counteracting length can be anchored securely, are otherwise than by means of weights at the inner ends properly propped, suitably spaced, and firmly anchored, provided that an inspector may grant permission that outriggers may be anchored by means of weights, and are provided with stop or other effective devices at the outer ends to prevent the displacement of ropes. An employer shall ensure that the working platform of every suspended scaffold is suspended by pulley blocks, sheaves, winches or hoists of the correct size for the ropes being used, At least 2 independent steel wire ropes in the case of a working platform which is not wider than 912 millimeters, and at least 4 independent steel wire ropes in the case of a working platform which is 912 meters and wider, and steel wire ropes of which the factor of safety is at least 10 with respect to the maximum load which each rope is to carry. An employer shall ensure that the hand or power-driven machinery used for the lifting or lowering of the working platform of a suspended scaffold is so constructed and maintained that an uncontrolled movement of the working platform cannot occur. The machinery referred to in paragraph A is so situated that it is easily accessible for inspection. The rope connections to the outriggers are vertically above the connections to the working platform, and in the case of a working platform suspended by 2 ropes only, the connections of the ropes to the working platform are of such height above the level of the working platform as to ensure the stability of the working platform. An employer shall ensure that the working platform of every suspended scaffold is at least 456 millimeters and not exceeding 1.8 meters in width, is suspended as near as possible to the structure to which work is being done, and, except when light work is being done, is secured at every working position to prevent horizontal movement between the working platform and the structure, is on all sides, except the side facing the structure, provided with substantial guardrails of at least 900 millimeters and not exceeding 1000 millimeters in height above the level of the working platform, provided that in the case of a working platform suspended by 2 ropes only, the guardrails shall be on all sides, and is on a side provided with toe boards which are at least 150 millimeters high from the level of the working platform, and so affixed that no open space exists between the toe board and the working platform, provided that if the toe boards are constructed of timber, they shall be at least 25 millimeters thick. Under General Safety Regulation Section 13G, we find trestle scaffolding. No employer shall use a trestle scaffold or permit it to be used unless it is soundly constructed of solid material, and all reasonable precautionary measures have been taken to prevent the unexpected spreading of its supporting legs when it is in use. No employer shall use a trestle scaffold or permit it to be used if it is higher than 3 meters or consists of more than 2 tiers. Regardless of the type of scaffolding you use, you must avoid the main hazards of all scaffolding, that is the falling from elevated positions, bad planking, the collapsing of the entire scaffold, getting struck by falling tools or debris, as well as electrocution. Poorly erected or maintained scaffolds can fail, sometimes catastrophically. Where a scaffold has inadequate foundations, tying or bracing, or is overloaded, it can collapse, endangering both workers as well as the public. Where scaffold boards or guardrails are missing, workers can suffer severe injuries due to falls. Scaffolders will be at risk where a safe system of work is not in place to protect them from falling. Falls from a scaffold can happen because of a number of reasons. These are caused by slipping, unsafe access, and the lack of fall protection, being struck by falling tools or debris, electrocution from overhead power lines, the scaffolding collapse caused by instability or overloading, as well as bad planking, giving way and causing injury or even death. Falls may occur when climbing on or off the scaffold, working on unguarded scaffold platforms, or when scaffold platforms or planks fail. It is important that your scaffolding maintain its stability during the course of use. A scaffolding is a temporary structure that is subjected to a wide range of load during erection, using as well as dismantling the entire scaffold. It should support its own dead load as well as live loads from construction materials, workers, tools, shock loads from material placement, as well as wind loads. Where failures occur, large areas of scaffolding can collapse quite suddenly. Scaffolds can collapse because of poor construction or misuse, leading to them being loaded beyond their safety capacity to support the load. Common faults are poor foundations, inadequate tying and bracing, overloading, and the removal of ties or bracing. Scaffolding stability depends on carefully following the system scaffold manufacturer's instructions and the provisions of safety codes and other equivalent standards. In particular, the issues listed below should be addressed. The foundations should be adequate. The scaffold should be tied to the permanent structure or to buttresses. The scaffold should be braced, and the scaffold should never be overloaded. There may come a time where you need to load items onto the scaffold. This could be any type of building material, or in your case, materials that need to be installed to a building. The weight, though, of these pallets can sometimes be in excess of the recommended load ratings of the actual scaffold. A loading bay will therefore be required. It is necessary to have these loading bays in order to lift pallets of heavy materials onto the scaffold. The provision of properly constructed loading bays can avoid the excessive loading of access scaffolds as well as the obstruction of gangways that can otherwise occur. Loading bays should be diagonally braced on all four sides or braced in compliance with the system recommendations. Where the internal facade bracing hinders access to the scaffold from the loading bay, the brace may be placed on the main scaffold adjacent to the loading bay or in accordance with the system manufacturer's recommendations. There are other issues which require consideration. These include standard transoms and at standard spacings, and timber decking at standard spans are not usually adequate to carry the higher loadings in a loading bay. So system scaffold loading bays incorporate special load-bearing transoms, often at reduced spacing. Where load-bearing transoms are directly connected to the outside face of a scaffold, the capacity of the standard to support the combined loads imposed by the working platforms and the load-bearing transoms should be assessed. Plan bracing should be installed from the outside corner of a loading bay to the main access scaffold, and the main scaffold should be tied to the building with supplementary ties opposite these braces at intervals not exceeding 3 meters. Where guardrails must be removed temporarily to facilitate loading, effective compensatory measures to prevent falls should be provided. These compensatory measures may include movable guardrails or panels, handholds, safety belts or harnesses affording an equivalent standard of protection as guardrails. Temporarily unguarded openings or edges should not be left unattended, and guardrails should be replaced as soon as practicable. It is important when loading a scaffold that adequate and appropriate signage is also placed onto the scaffold. This must be easily comprehensible, showing the safe working load for each working lift, and it must be placed on each scaffolding loading bay.